In this video we're going to fit a new single hole basin tap like that. This is the old one that's been taken off. Obviously you can see that that has had better days. Before we can replace the tap we need to isolate the water supply, and then we need to open the two lowest taps on the system to drain the hot and cold water from the system. This is normally a very easy job. It's just simply a case of putting new flexi tails on with the new tap, but in this instance the actual flexi tails are plastered into the wall, so that's going to make it a little bit more difficult. To make the access a little bit more easy, I'm actually going to remove all of the waste fitting from underneath this basin, and then we can actually get to the actual flexi tails. So I'm just going to gently tap away at this, and then hopefully we will get through to the actual flexi tails. I think we've now got enough room just to get in there and actually remove the actual tails. So I'm going to grip that part of the fitting using the water pump pliers. You can see that the actual horseshoe washer has rusted away completely from that. There's nothing holding that tap down anymore. What you'd normally do now is get a 10mm box spanner like that, and then you could use that to undo that nut which is holding the horseshoe washer in position, which is then holding the tap in position. Because this tap has a built-in waste, we're just going to undo the small nut at the back there, and that will enable me to pull out this rod which activates the pop-up waste. You can see that that is now free, so we can now pull that up. I'm now just going to get hold of the tap. I'm just going to pull that up through the actual hole. This is the old tap that was removed. As you can see, it's in very bad condition. We have got quite a bit of corrosion around the top of that flexi tail there, so that could have rusted through and gone at any time. The actual horseshoe that was holding it on had completely rusted away. So we've removed that completely. We're now going to fit the brand new tap. This tap is pretty simple to fit. All we do is take that collar, fit that on there, and then we simply take the flexi tails and we simply screw those into position. And it does actually have a warning on here not to actually screw these in using a spanner. So I'm just going to do them as tight as I can by hand. I'll now do the same with the other one. To make the job a lot easier, if you use a box wrench like that, which is a 10mm one, you can actually go underneath and you can actually tighten those nuts up using the box wrench, and that makes it very easy to do. So we're now just going to remove the two brass nuts. Sometimes with these you only get one screw. It depends on the make of the tap. This particular one has two screws. We can now just screw the screws into those holes. And then we'll just nip those up using a screwdriver. It is going to be difficult to film this, so what we do now is we get that in position. That goes through the actual hole in the basin, and then from underneath we get the horseshoe washer and the rubber washer, and they go on there like so. And then we put the two brass nuts on and tighten those up from underneath using the box spanner, and then that part there will actually clamp onto the ceramic part of the basin holding the tap in position. I've now given this area a clean. I've now got all the components assembled there, and I've even put in the handle for the pop-up waste. So that is in there as well. So we're now going to feed everything through the hole in the basin. I've now got the horseshoe washer and the rubber washer in position. I'm now just going to put on the final brass nut. A good tip for when you're tightening the nut is to get a ratchet and a socket that fits the opposite end. So there I've got a 15mm socket and ratchet, which means that I can now place that end on the nut and I can use a ratchet to tighten it. You do have to be careful though when you do this, because you do not want to over tighten it. Now that the tap is firmly fixed, we now just need to connect up the flexi tails. So we're just going to check that the washer in the end there is in good condition, which it is. Obviously when we do this we need to make sure that we don't cross thread them. We just need to nip those up until they're nice and tight. You don't want to go mad when you're doing that. There is only a sealing washer in there. I've now turned the water back onto the property and I am just inspecting it, just checking for leaks before we actually reinstate the waste and the pop-up waste, just in case there are any leaks, because it is difficult in this situation. And it does look perfectly dry, so we can now continue. We can now put the trap back and reconnect the pop-up waste. So that's how to fit a single hole tap. Normally it is much easier than this. We encountered a couple of problems, mainly because the actual flexi tails were buried into the actual plastic. But once we got that out, it was relatively straightforward to swap the tap over.